Last year, Tim showed me a folio of work which had been produced from Afghanistan, and in the midst of it were these pictures of sleeping soldiers, which he in his own mind had tagged, but didn't say anything to me. And I have to say, I find that they jumped off the page, not for any amazing aesthetic innovations, but for choice of subject matter. And I think it's very, very salutary in this approach. It certainly challenged my expectations of war photography.
Well, I guess I'd always been. I've experimented a lot with computers and digital imagery for a long time. And what happened was that in the mid to late 95, 97, there weren't a lot of people really doing stuff like that. And that's how I first met Susan Myzelis, who was doing AK Kurdistan, and there was a guy called Pedro Meyer, who was doing Zone Zero, and all of us were kind of trying to figure out like how digital culture was going to affect documentary photojournalism, the kind of story, the form that we were interested in. Obviously, Pedro was one of the first to kind of swim those shores from analog to digital and went totally off into fiction. In fact, I think he's so far ahead of everybody else because he went totally into fiction in a very interesting way. But I think he was just, sometimes he was just too far ahead. I started to do that, and so there wasn't a lot of people. And you go in to see picture editors, and I remember going in to take a piece I did, House of Pain, which was an early piece, and I went to see a picture editor at the independent newspaper, one of the big British dailies, and this was in 1998, 1999, 1999 I think it was, and he said to me, why are you showing me this, we're a newspaper? And so I then stopped kind of trying to make, because it was at the time we were grappling with a lot of technology, we were grappling with low bandwidth, we were grappling with kind of file formats, if it was in Shockwave or whatever, different kind of, there was no standardization going on. But what I did know in those days, like in '98, I was like, well, the future's going to be broadcast. Like, okay, I'm not saying there is totally a place for print will stay, but the future in terms of the plasticity or the flexibility of images and our thinking will be in broadcast. And so then it was like, okay, let's make a parallel career in broadcast, because at that time you needed to have I couldn't go, there was no one cohesive person to talk to. It was always like, if you showed them the TV film, they'd say, go and see our audio-visual unit, and if you started showing them photography, still images, I'd go and see the picture editor. And I realized that like the people that I needed to talk to were going to be different. Like, I need to be able to call up the person who's doing BBC or Channel 4 or whatever, or ABC, and say, hey, can you find me some way to do this? And so it's very separate. And finally, over the last couple of years, and really not that, last 3 years, 4 years, probably, things have started to be this kind of convergence. Of now people are like, oh yeah, of course, yeah, great, we got this website that looked fantastic on that. And so finally, it's like being able to pull together the two mediums in one. And I just felt that with the Sleeping Soldiers piece, I changed my photography partly for the medium. Had also adjusted how I was photographing, because on the screen, when we were thinking up experiments on the screen, you realise that very complex photography, like photography that has like the kind of Danish school of photojournalism from the late 90s, very complex black and white framing with lots of depth, just didn't really work on the screen. If you flick that on the screen for 4 seconds, you weren't going to have it. So I kind of simplified down the imagery for a lot of work that I was trying to use for the screen. And obviously the Sleeping Soldiers was very, very simple. It's like, a kind of highly charged image full of ideas, but in fact the actual the framing of it is very, very simple. And so really that it was I just decided to explore that find this convergence, and I wanted to put that into installation. And funny enough, the installation idea, I just got obsessed since I watched I got into these kind of crazy funny ideas of mixing media was watching Soylent Green, which was kind of Charlton Heston's science fiction film from '64, and where people are wheeled on to die, and they're put in front of this curved screen around themselves and showing pictures of clouds and butterflies and lovely things, and then they give them a lethal injection. And so I kind of thought, well, that I always loved that arrangement, so it was great to be able to put it on the photo festival, that kind of immersion,
The choice of the subject was very challenging. I thought that we're very, as we were just talking earlier about the familiar tropes, the familiar styles of image, of the soldier. It's all, as you once described it to me, it's the kinetic representation of war. And I thought in your choice of the soldier asleep and naked, there was something very interesting, very different happening. And that to me revealed a much more thoughtful approach to war. I mean, sleep is a part of war as much as food is, as much as ammunition is. Without it, it doesn't happen.
Well, I think it also comes back to what we expect to see out of war and what we expect, like this kind of pact with the viewers or the editors about what we should be showing. And it's interesting enough that the VII used one of those sleeping soldiers' pictures on their website. They weren't used in print in any way. They were almost like, and a lot of the pictures of the soldiers, the stuff that I'm trying to make a book of, this kind of intimate look at male, it's about male bonding really in war. And those, none of those images were really used. And I think it comes back to that kind of, again, this idea of ghettoization for photographers is also this way that our thinking is also, put in those confines as well. I mean, if you ask me, like, why I photograph in a war, I'd never consider myself a war photographer. I'm not interested in flying around the world to war zone to war zone, but what interests me about war, and I think anybody who's photographed in war will say, war is just this incredible environment where the extremities of life and human emotion and people are kind of crystallized in these moments where only in war can you see extreme, the extremities of love or hate or of selflessness, of all these incredible things are happening. And yet it always amazed me that as photographers we bring back so few of those, or so few of those, those multiplicity of human emotions are seen in war photography. It's always, for extreme brutality or a kind of, suffering victims we have to see it.